I had a couple of people inquire about Nearpod and some of the things that it's capable of doing. So I wanted to walk through just a quick tutorial of what Nearpod looks like. The first thing that you're going to want to do is going to go to nearpod.com and create yourself an account. Once you do that, then you're going to come to just any Google Slides presentation that you're trying to edit and add these different elements to. And then you're going to go to add-ons right here. Your add-ons will probably just say get add-ons, or if you have any add-ons, they'll be listed in here. If you go to get add-ons, it'll bring you up a drop box here, and then you can add all kinds of different things in here. But the one that you're looking for is Nearpod. Once you search for that, it should come up, and then you have the option to install it. And then you're going to install it, and once it's there, then you'll be able to access it from this add-on menu. So I can go through here and I can open Nearpod. The first time you do this, it'll probably ask you to sign into your Nearpod account. Once you've already signed into your Nearpod account, then it'll come up with all of your options. So I want to talk about a couple of these. Some of them are self-explanatory, some of them may be a little bit less so. So I can add in an audio file if I want to, something that I want my students to listen to. I can add in a BBC video. There's also an option down here to add in a video where you can add a YouTube link and add a video that way. You can add collaboration boards. These collaboration boards are pretty cool. What you can do with them is, if you click that, you'll come up with an edit slide here, and they have some different design options down here at the bottom. But what you want to do is you want to add in a topic here and then enter a description. So, topic is Nearpod. What are some ways you can use Nearpod in your classroom? And this question will be posed to the students when they come to this screen. As they respond, they can respond with text, they can respond with pictures if they want to. They'll pin to this nice little board that all the students will be able to see. You will be able to see their names, the other students in the class will not. It'll come up with an option for you on your side, on the teacher side of this, that will say, do you want to moderate this board? What that means is that you can approve all of the ones that your students are seeing before they see them. So, you can check for inappropriate answers in that way if you want to. I've never had an issue with that with my students, but just in case it becomes an issue, you always have that extra element of control to ensure that your classroom is staying focused on the learning aspect. So these collaboration boards are really, really cool. You can always go back and re-access them. When you download the reports afterwards, it'll give you a link and you can go back and look at them and distinguish between what different students said and things like that. One of the other things that I like to do is that one of the things that your kids can do is it will allow them to like each one of these different ideas that come up on the collaboration board, and then you can organize the posts by number of likes. And so, for example, one of the things that I've done is I've had my students, in talking about the Great Depression, what things would you have to sacrifice if your family's income was cut in half? And they go through and they like the ones that they agree with. And then over time, what ends up happening is you almost create a nice little poll, and you can go over the ones that are most applicable to the largest number of students in your class. There's a lot of really cool options with this collaborate piece here. Other things that you can do here inside of Nearpod is you can add what's called the Draw It. A Draw It just allows your students to directly draw on an image that you give them. So, for example, I've done this with maps and with different types of art, where I've asked them a question, they've had to circle different elements of a piece of art that helps them to identify that type of art. So you can do it in that way. You can also do, I've heard some math teachers talk about graphs. You can practice transformation like this. All you have to do is insert the image of the graph. They can then edit it. And again, at the end, you can download all of those from your students to see if your students are struggling, if they're doing well. In addition, as they submit them to you, you will be able to look at them in real time as they submit them. So it's a pretty cool feature there that allows you to kind of look through things as you're going. In addition, other things, they have like field trips that are built in here, which are basically digital trips to different landmarks. Fill in the blanks is exactly what it sounds like. It's a checking for understanding tools. Flipgrid is another web application that's a video editing application, so you can play with that. Matching pairs, again, another checking for understanding application. memory tests. Nearpod 3D is great for diagrams and things like that, especially if you're looking at science. I've had teachers who have said that they've done like almost cross sections of the brain, and then you can kind of manipulate them and move around it in a more three-dimensional way. So that's an option. I've never personally used that, but I know other teachers that have. Open-ended questions are just, again, checking for understanding questions. If I click on this real quick, it's going to come up with an option to ask a question. So I can enter my question here, and then I can add a timer to it. And I'll usually, depending on the question, will give my kids in the realm of 1 minute and 30 seconds to add that information. And then when they get it, it'll come up with an option for me to start the timer. And then when the students get their side of it, after 1 minute and 30 seconds, it will automatically submit it. And that is helpful for two different reasons. First of all, the kid that is sitting there not doing it, you'll know because it'll be submitted blank to you. The kids that are maybe, writing out a really long and detailed response, after 1 minute and 30 seconds, it is going to cut them off, but you'll get their response in so that way you know that they were doing it and not just that they, were sitting back not doing anything. So in this also, in these slides, you can also add media, video, audio instructions. If they need some kind of a stimulus to answer the question, you can absolutely add that in here. And you can also enable your students to record audio recordings instead of having to write out a response. So lots of different options there. I check these as my students are getting them in. You can also share them back with your kids. So when you get those good responses in, I always look for that kid that struggles in class, and I look for their best response of the week, and I post it back to the kids, hey, this kid did a really great job on identifying the key elements and causes of the Glorious Revolution, or whatever it happens to be. Whatever I've asked them to accomplish, that kid that usually struggles in class, you can find the one that they've done well, you can shout them out if you want to, or you can just say, hey, this is a really great response, and that I find that kids will react positively to that, and it makes them want to have more good answers. So it's a really cool classroom management tool as well. And so you got that option. Other options that are in here, you can add a PDF into here. I like to do that at the start of my lessons for like a warm-up. I'll tell my students, hey, read the PDF while I'm letting kids into class. That's a really good option. They have polls and quizzes. Again, you can share results. The quiz, you can do a checking for understanding quiz at the end or in the middle of your lesson, whatever happens to work for you. These PhET simulations are science simulations. Again, I've never used that. Nearpod will allow you to add some Nearpod slides in here. If there are slides that you want your students to go over kind of on their own, at their own pace, you can add those and throw those into each one of these different simulations. Into each one of these different presentations. Sway I have not used before, but Time to Climb is sort of like Kahoot. You put a series of questions in, the students are graded based on the number of correct responses as well as how quickly they are able to respond to them, so you don't have to have that third-party application. If you associate, an extra credit point with this, kids will get really competitive and they really enjoy this. So that's, basically Kahoot. It's just a little bit, it's got its own music and, view is a little bit different. So that's one of the things you can do. I already explained the video one. And then web content. I can direct my students to a web page directly through Nearpod. Again, I can have them read through something if I'm having them look at something. Maybe I want to have them look at, a Google site that I've set up that has 5 different images on it. And what are the things that stand out to you about these images, and have them look at them all at the same time. All of those things are an option here within Nearpod. Once you are finished, you'll have the option down here to save and go to Nearpod. So that will automatically open up your Nearpod. So if we just go and take a look at my Nearpod real quick, I can show you what this looks like on the other side. So in my Nearpod here, I've got a whole bunch of these different lessons that I've done over the years, but I've mostly organized my Nearpod with different folders. So I can stay organized in here as well. And I can, if I go to edit any of these, it will just open up that Google Slides presentation, and I'll be able to edit it from there. So just to give you a little sense of something that I've done here, I'll take you into something that I did for the summer. So I've got, one of my lessons in here, and then you'll have 3 different options here. I haven't tried out this live participation plus Zoom yet, but the live participation one is really the only one that you need. So I can go to live participation here, and it's going to give me an ad code. Let's give it just a second. It's going to give this an ad code. So I can take this ad code and give it to the kids, and they can join at join.nearpod.com, or I can just give them a direct link. I can post this link into into Canvas if I want to. I can take it and I can put it into the chat on Zoom if I want to. There are a lot of different ways to give kids access, and then it'll come up with a sign-in page for them that looks something like this right here. So it's got waiting for students to sign in. And then as it comes up, it'll have two different boxes for them. It'll have a spot for their name, and then it will have a spot for their, like a nickname. I just have my students in the name spot. I have them put last name, first name. Once they've done it once, every single time that they bring this up, it's automatically there for them. Then when I download the reports from Nearpod afterwards, they're already in alphabetical order. And if kids don't follow directions, I just hit a little button when they're all in here. They come up right here, and there's a little button I can hit to X them out, and they know that they've done something wrong, and I can address that in my Zoom call as well. Hey guys, make sure that you're signing in with your last name and your first name, and that usually helps to get rid of those issues. And again, once they've done it once, they're usually okay. The other thing that's really cool in here is that in here I can also come to this button up here and switch to student view directly. So if I switch to student view, I can see exactly what it is my students are seeing. So what I like to do is I like to have one of these open on student view, and then I like to click this button that says open in a separate window. So I'll click that button. This will give me the student version of what they're looking at, so that I know all the time exactly what my kids are looking at and what they're staring at. I'll open that up on half my screen, and then I'll open up the teacher version on the other half of my screen. And now over here on the left, I've got the student view. Over here on the right, I've got the teacher view. Now what I can do is I can push forward. And when I push forward, my student's screen pushes forward. Okay, so for example, this is a question related to the reading from that web page. It's taking a second to load, but you're going to summarize. What does the Juneteenth holiday celebrate? And then you're going to have a start activity button here, and they won't see it until you've started the activity. All right, so I can go over the question before they've even had an opportunity to read it. I can say start activity. It's going to come up with a timer on their side. They know that they've got a minute and a half. They've got a timer up here. It tells them ahead of time that they've got a minute and a half, and it comes up with this text box to enter. As they enter their responses and submit them, I can't submit because I'm a teacher in student view, they will automatically populate here on your side. So you'll be able to see, Johnny says this answer, Susie says this answer. And you can, again, while I'm waiting for this minute and a half to expire, I always give shout outs to kids. Hey, really good job, Johnny. I really like that you pointed out X, Y, and Z. Right? Or you can just say, hey, great response, and leave it at that so that you're not giving away the response to the other students who haven't completed the question yet. It's completely up to you. You can also redirect if you need to. Hey, really great response, but remember to think about what the significance of this event is to the African American community. Whatever it happens to be, you can incorporate that with just those little audio cues that keep your kids listening and help to bring them in a little bit more on their end. So you can automatically see those answers populate. I can also get a sense of, hey, I got a kid who's struggling because he's giving me the last 2 or 3 answers and they're all kind of off. And I can go back again and look at the reports later on and see what it is they're struggling with. Or if I get a kid that's not participating and they get constant answers that aren't being submitted, then I can address that issue as well. So it really does help with the management side of digital learning, of distance learning. So would highly, highly recommend this. Again, as I push forward, my kids can't push forward before I do. And so you can see here, these are just kind of my slides as we've gone through. Now I've got, a question that we're going to discuss. And then, all these things that I would normally include into a lesson are here, and they're just pushing forward with me. The other nice thing is, if you've got a Nearpod up, I found that kids will pay attention to the Nearpod and will not be paying attention to what each other is doing in the Zoom call. So they'll be able to hear you, they're listening to you, your screen will pop up, there'll be a little screen up here with you in it probably. If not, then they're listening to you, but they're not necessarily seeing you. That's okay. And in addition, if you've got somebody who's doing something that maybe is not what they're supposed to be doing, they're also not seeing them. So that's, really cool things that happen when you're using Nearpod to direct your lesson here. So, and again, as I push forward, they push forward. They've got to stay with me. If they ever close out of their window completely, Nearpod will give me a little notification down here. So right now this says 0, but if all my students are at least have the window open, then everything here, it'll give me a number of students, 27, 35, whatever, however many students I have, and then it'll show them as all green. So that button will be green. If I have a student who has closed out of the window and hit the X button and they're no longer logged into the Nearpod, I will automatically get a red here with the number of students that are logged in. And then it will, if I pop this up, it'll show me which student has closed out. And that's really, really helpful, again, to keep students focused and just to be able to pass that information on to whoever needs to have that information. So these are just some of the really, really cool things that you can do with Nearpod. They are really simple to create, and they really help me to manage my class. You can deliver them through Zoom. Your kids have to stay with you throughout Zoom. So really cool elements. Then what I can do, if I go back to my Nearpod, so I'm going to go back real quick to my home page. Do you want to leave this session? Yes, I do. I can always go back to that session if I want to. But now what I can do is in that same lesson that my kids were looking at down here, now for the absent students, in order for them to go back and get their participation points, now I can go back and give them a student paste option. That will, and I can post that in Canvas. That will allow them to go back and at least respond to the questions. They won't be able to hear your responses. It's not going to automatically record you as you're lecturing, as you're delivering that instruction, but it gives them an opportunity to go back and answer the questions that they need to answer in order to have that makeup opportunity that we're going to have to provide in order to have equity within our classes this year. So that's another really great thing that you can put in there. And then through Canvas, I can have that show up for only certain students who were absent. So that's all self-contained within Nearpod and then can be attached to Canvas as well. So it's a really, really great program. I'm not sure how I would survive distance learning without this program, but that just gives you a little sense of how I use it, kind of how to create it. I welcome and encourage you, go into Nearpod, play with Nearpod, and use it because it's a great engagement tool. Kids really, really like these tools and think that they're pretty cool, especially the first few times that they see them. And it makes distance learning, I think, a whole lot easier to manage. So I hope that you found this video helpful. Again, please, don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you've got any questions that I can answer, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If you've got an idea of another video that I can do that might help some other teachers, please let me know. And I will be, I'll be posting more videos if more videos are helping people. Okay? Thanks.